Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, Executive Editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with a very quasi-interesting reissue on Deutsche Grammophon, The Unknown Richard Strauss. 15 fun-filled CDs, somewhat mistitled. I think it should have been called The Rare Richard Strauss, or Richard Strauss Rarities, or something like that, because the fact of the matter is, most of the stuff in here is no longer unknown. It was probably less known when these recordings were made back in 1998, 99, somewhere in there. But since then, and even before, they were a little bit less unknown than the record label may have represented. Of course, that record label was not Deutsche Grammophon. And here, I just have to make an observation, which I think is kind of fascinating. First of all, these are Bavarian radio recordings for the most part, aren't they? Yes, BR Classic. That's who did them. And they were originally issued by Koch, or Koch in Germany. Koch here in the good old US of A. And that was nice. I mean, it was nice that they came out. It was interesting repertoire, and it was the kind of stuff that, small or smallish independent labels were doing, and the majors were largely ignoring. And so I think it's kind of fascinating at this stage that Deutsche Grammophon, a label that used to have all of the major, or most of the major German artists and a whole roster of international artists exclusively signed to its label, dealing only with those world-class artists and the finest orchestras, is now reduced to doing what every other independent label is doing, which is scrounging around radio archives or looking for out-of-print material from independent but now defunct labels and reissuing that. Now, of course, the Bamberg Symphony, which is what mostly performing this stuff, and Carl Anton Rickenbacker are not exactly, third-rate hacks, but they're second-rate hacks. I mean, and I'm not trying to be insulting about that. What I mean is we're talking about what DG's history is. It's kind of shocking. It's a label that now is doing the scrounge thing like every other label, and then releasing piles of garbage by people we've never heard of, doing music we've never heard of, that cannot by any stretch of the imagination be called classical, because, I did a video on just take a look at the video. Call me ignorant, but is this classical? I think that's the name of the video. It's kind of shocking to see how the mighty have fallen. Of course, they're still part of Universal Music. They still have an unbelievable back catalog. They still have all the might of a corporate behemoth in the entertainment industry that has classical music as kind of like a teeny tiny beauty mark on its otherwise fat and corpulent body. But and the distribution and whatnot to do all of that stuff. So they have enormous resources. But for them to do this, I'm a bit shocked. I think it's a little shocking. I really do. I'm glad to have it. I'm happy it's out. It's fun stuff. But, just a little philosophical speculation there about the nature of the marketplace. I think we might want to consider. And, of course, one of the other things, reasons I know this stuff isn't so unknown, is because it went out of print fairly quickly. On Koch, it was issued and deleted. But in the meantime, I wrote a book on Richard Strauss. Here is the book. And in the book, I was able to talk about a lot of the stuff that's in here, not because I had those recordings, but because there were other recordings ready to hand. And I'm going to talk about a few of those. I'll just mention them just so you know what they are. And they were recorded ready to hand before this stuff was recorded, before 1997, 98, 99. So it was around for me to listen to in preparing my Strauss book, because this stuff had long been out of print. So there you go. Anyway, let's see what's in here. Let's open it up. It's 15 CDs, as I mentioned. And let's see, they're not like original jackets or anything. They're all kind of like, monochromatic. So we can just go by the booklet, I think. And I'll tell you what's in there. Disc number 1, early orchestral music. The very, very early Taylor's Polka, the Schneider Polka, and the Serenade in G major, Ohne Opuszahl 32 without opus number, and the Gavotte in D major, the Serenade in E flat major, opus 7. That's the Wind Serenade, which now exists in rather many versions, I think. Or is it the Serenade in E flat? Yeah, Serenade in E flat is opus 7. And the other one is opus 4, the Suite opus 4, right, for winds? Yeah. And the Concert Overture in C minor, and the Fest March in C major. Now, this is very interesting. The orchestra is the Orchesterverein Wilde Gungel. Now, Wilde Gungel is conducted here by Jaroslav Opala, but Wilde Gungel is a Munich community orchestra, you might call it that, an amateur orchestra, that was conducted by Strauss's father. And this is not the recordings that were led by Strauss's father in the early 1870s or whatever the heck it was. No. They didn't make records under Strauss's father. These are modern recordings, but it's interesting that they're still around and doing this stuff. But I'm looking through these discs here, and let's see. I do know that there is at least one recording of some of this stuff. Well, here's the Fest March. The Fest March is conducted by no less than Nimi Järvi, and this one's in E flat. Is that a different Fest March? Maybe it is. Strauss was always writing Fest Marcherins or Marchins or whatever you call them. Marcia. Fest March in C major. Okay, it's a different one. The E flat one is on disc number 2. So I still have it. All right, so disc number 2. Now we're with Rickenbacker and the Bamberg Symphony, the Fest March in E flat. That's the one that's here by Järvi. And the Romance for Clarinet and Orchestra, and the Romance for Cello and Orchestra, and the Concert Overture in C minor, which we just heard on disc 1, which is 2 minutes shorter than it was on disc 1. All to the good. It's not Major Strauss. But let's see, the Romance. Now I know the Romance. Here it is. Nimi Järvi did that too on Chandos. So that's available. And we've heard it. I mean, it's been recorded a few times. So those are discs 1 and 2. Now, let's see, disc 3. Oh, disc 3, this is really very, very interesting, to tell you the truth. It's really kind of cool. CD 2, and let's see, CD 3. Oh, they were still on CD 2. But this is very, very interesting. You get his incidental music to Romeo and Juliet, which is 4 very, very short pieces, little vocal things, and a little funeral march. It's very, very minor and completely faceless and indistinct, but it's nice to have. Who knew he did it, right? So that's fun. Then you get the incidental music to a series of tableaux vivants. This is big stuff. It's 4 big movements. It's about 20 minutes of music, and they represent, let's see, William the Silent sacrificing his treasures to save his country. That was one of them. And then meeting and peacemaking between Prince Maurice of Orange and the Marquis of Spinola. There we are. They're tableaux vivants, by the way, in celebration. Let's see what it was here. In celebration of the golden wedding anniversary of Grand Duke Karl Alexander of Saxe-Weimar-Eisenach and Grand Duchess Sophie, Princess of the Netherlands. That's what it was for. We have to remember, Strauss spent most of his life working under various monarchies. And this was one of them. Then we get, let's see, the third movement, Duke Bernard of Weimar at the Battle of Lutzen. That's really good. That's 6 minutes of nice, fiery battle music. It's lots of fun. And then we get, let's see, the last one, the reconciliation of Admiral de Ruyter and Admiral Trombe by William III, Prince of Orange, later King of England. That's William and Mary. William. Remember him? So there you go. Interesting music. Now, disc 3 contains the 2 symphonies, the early one in D minor and Symphony number 2 in F minor. The second symphony is a good piece. It's not bad. It's really not bad. It's been recorded a few times. Here it is. Here it is again. Nimi Järvi on Chandos, coupled with 6 songs on the Romance for Cello and Orchestra. See, I told you this stuff, and these were made before this stuff, so this stuff was around. These were recorded 1988 to 93, so before these recordings came out. So that's, I mean, it's nice to have these. They're not bad, but unknown? No, definitely not. Then we get piano concertos for the left hand. Oh, these are fun. The paragon to the Sinfonia Domestica. A paragon is kind of like an appendix, an ornamental addition to something. So it's the paragons of the Sinfonia Domestica and the Panathenaeenzug, the thing that nobody can pronounce, but as I say in the book, it's actually easier to pronounce than you think. It really is. It's the Panathenaeenzug, which means all Athens festival procession, essentially. It's a bunch of games in honor of the goddess Athena, blabbity, 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 blab. Why he called it that, I have no idea, because it's subtitled Symphonic Etudes in the Form of a Passacaglia for Piano, Left Hand, and Orchestra. This is a piece with way too many titles and far too much explanation, but it happens to be a good piece of music, and it's virtually unknown because it's virtually impossible to play. God knows Ludwig Wittgenstein, who also did like the Ravel Concerto and Prokofiev's Fourth and all this, Franz Schmidt stuff and all this stuff. He never played any of it because he was a terrible pianist, even left-handed or whatever. But these Strauss pieces are fun. Now, they're not unknown either because I talk about them in the book, and you can find them quite easily in the fabulous Kempe set. Remember the Kempe set? This is the one that every Strauss person already owns. The complete Strauss recordings by Rudolf Kempe. It's still around on Warner. You can always get these things. They're fabulous, and they're sort of, they just dropped the booklet. See, I'm really having a good time here. These you can get everywhere, and they, of course, are much earlier, pre-digital recordings, and they contain these two piano pieces, and along with the burlesque, all on one disc. So, not unknown, but worth knowing. The pianist, by the way, is Anna Gurari. They're good performances. They're very good performances. All right, some piano music. A disc of piano music played by Stefan Vladar. 5 piano pieces. The Piano Sonata in B minor, Opus 5. How many people know that? That's definitely worth hearing. Didn't Glenn Gould do that? I think he did. Oops. Well, anyway. And the mood pictures, Stimmungsbilder. And that's fine. Then we get fantasies and fragments from operas. Now, all this stuff is very well known. You get the symphonic fantasy from Die Frau Neuschatten. You get a symphonic fragment from Die Liebe der Danae. And you get the symphonic fragment from Die Ägyptische Helena, whatever her name was. She was Ägyptische. That, of course, is the opera that has the famous, all-knowing singing clam, which, the All-Vision something Mussel, whatever. God, it's a silly opera. But, it has such beautiful music. Gorgeous, gorgeous music. And the symphonic fragment is well worth hearing. Okay, preludes and intermezzi from the operas. You get the prelude to Act 1 and 2 from Guntram. You get the famous love scene from Fire Snot. Now, that is the opera with possibly the most unfortunate name in the entire world. I mean, it really is, especially if you speak English. I mean, maybe in German, Feuersnot sounds like something. I don't know, but it sounds like Fire Snot in English. And the love scene from Fire Snot is on this one by Jarvi, the same disc that has the Fest March. Opus 1 that we had previously mentioned. You see, so that wasn't terribly unknown. The love scene from Fire Snot is just wonderful. And then we get bits of Le Bourgeois Gentilhomme that are not in the suite. But I have to say, they got the complete Bourgeois Gentilhomme later on in here, so that's not necessary. Then we have an interlude for Mozart's Idomeneo. That's fun. And Arabella, the prelude to Act 3. And then 2 bits of Capriccio, the Moonlight music, and the Sextet, which everybody knows. That's not unusual. And the Potpourri, which is the prelude to Act 1 of Die Schweigsame Frau. Now, all of this stuff has been recorded. There's that disc, I think Andrew Davis did it on Sony, and Zubin Mehta did a bunch of Strauss preludes with the Berlin Philharmonic that are lovely. Andre Previn did a disc with a bunch of this stuff. None of it is unknown, really. Maybe the Idomeneo bit, but basically. Okay, ballet music. Joseph's Legenda, the symphonic fragment from Joseph's Legenda, and Schlagobers, the suite, which is arranged. Is this arranged by somebody? No. It was arranged in 1932 by Strauss. Now, Joseph's Legenda is not so bad. Strauss had a very troubling relationship with the ballet. Schlagobers is just, oh my God, it's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. It is insufferable. I mean, if there's ever a composer you did not want to ask to write a bunch of triacly Viennese waltz-type music set in a sweet shop, it was Richard Strauss, because he did it with malicious glee, I would say. But, of course, all of these ballets are been recorded complete now, and they're quite well known. Here's Sinopolis' Joseph's Legenda. Here's the Järvi Joseph's Legenda. And we have Schlagobers was done way, way, way back by Wakasugi with the Tokyo Metropolitan Orchestra, and there have been several recordings since then. I just happened to pull this one out at random. This was on Denon. He also did Joseph's Legenda, and he did the complete Couperin dance arrangement things. Some of that music is also in here, in the Kempa box. So, unknown? No. Rare? Yes. Because nobody likes it, basically. But, I mean, it's not, it has its moments. All right, so then we get ballet suites after Couperin. There are two, and these have been recorded on multiple occasions. Like I said, one of them is in here, the dance suite after Couperin, and the other piece, which was later called Divertimento, which is also a ballet suite after Couperin. It's a late work, 1940-41. They were slammed together to make a single ballet called Verklugene Feste, something like, fated festivals or celebrations, or I don't know, it had some very pretentious title. The music is delicious. It's absolutely delightful. Wonderful, wonderful arrangements. Fun to listen to the originals as well as Strauss's versions of them. They've been recorded multiple times. There's a nice big fat disc of both of them on Naxos with Jerry Schwartz and Seattle, who also did a lot of this unusual opera excerpts and other pieces. So they're easy to find, and they have never really been as unknown as they would have you believe. What else have I got here? I'm just looking at this pile of stuff I pulled out. Well, all right. We're in good shape. Next is a disc 10, called the Waltz King. Now, the Waltz King was, of course, the other Strauss, right? Johann Strauss II. But they're saying it's our Strauss, and it has a bunch of waltzes, including his very, very strange two waltzes from Munich. He wrote a Munich waltz, an occasional waltz in 1939, and then after Munich had been completely destroyed in World War II, basically by the Nazis, who Strauss really blamed for the whole thing, and rightly so, he wrote a very, very strange memorial waltz called München, ein Gedächtniswalzer. And it's an odd piece, a very odd and interesting, embittered piece, I think is the way to describe it. And then you get the Rosenkavalier waltz intermezzos and the waltz scene from Intermezzo, and waltz things. All right, next we get two discs of the complete Bourgeois Gentilhomme, which has also been recorded elsewhere. People don't want to listen to that. They don't want to hear all the dialogue and all that stuff. But there is music in here that Strauss didn't include in the suite. And the narrator is Peter Ustinov. Yay! He's such a great narrator. He did the Decca Harianos. He did Peter the Wolf. He did, he was a fabulous raconteur, and his narrations are always great. So you get two discs of that. Then you get this piece called The Donkey's Shadow, Des Esels Schatten. Now, Strauss was a very good composer of shadow music. There was Die Frau Ohne, remember that one? But this was written somewhere around 1947-48, and it wasn't completed. And it was orchestrated and completed by Karl, let's see, Hausner, or something like that, Hausner. And Peter Ustinov is the narrator, and it's got all these people. And what this is, I have no idea. I mean, it's a play with music, and exactly how much work Strauss did on it and what was necessary to complete it, we are not told. And so I have no information about it and don't think we need to hear it either. I listened to it. It's, nothing there. Then we have the Strauss Hofmannsthal version of Beethoven's The Ruin of Athens, which consists mostly of Beethoven's Prometheus ballet with a few numbers added by Strauss, some vocal numbers. And that's it. It's one disc, and it's interesting for what it is, but it's essentially Beethoven, not Strauss. And then you've got a disc of choral music, 2 songs for 16-part chorus. Boy, is that thick. Woo, are those thick. And well sung here, very hard to sing. 7 4-part songs, and then some other short pieces, 3 male choruses, 4 mass movements, early mass movements, with the Berlin Radio Choir, which is excellent. So that's fun to have, and that's the last disc. That's the whole deal. That stuff is really unknown. I mean, the stuff that we really don't know by Strauss is bits of piano music, choral music, like that, 2 discs, 3 discs, and of course these extended incidental music or plays with music things that he made suites out of, but here are offered complete. Probably out of 15 discs, there are 5 that I think qualify as unknown. All the rest of it is known and readily available. It has been. Much of it was readily available before this even came out. And so you will have to decide if you think that you need this. The performances are all fine. The sound is good. It's enjoyable music. I mean, it's Strauss. It's a nice way to fill in your Strauss collection if you had not been running around writing a book on Strauss and looking for all of the weird stuff or filling out your collection. It's probably a good, relatively inexpensive way to do it. So this is perfectly recommendable for what it is. Strauss rarities. But it's not unknown. No. Not unknown. Not even to casual Strauss listeners. Some of it will be known. No question about it. Either way, keep on listening. Thank you for joining me. Take care.